Hey guys, welcome back to Karting with Chris. Today's video is going to be the Spring 4 race here at North Texas Karters. So I'm going to start off with some bad news. I lost one of my GoPros. For those of you wondering why I didn't post the Spring 3 race, it's because I misplaced my GoPro. So if you see my GoPro, it's a Hero 8 with a 256GB SD card in it. Let me know if you or someone you know finds something fitting that description. Let me know, or if you see it on the black market or eBay, buy it for me. I might reimburse you. But yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. Spring 3 race, I set a track record by half a second. You know, I just started in the back, pulled in front. I won the whole thing by about 30 seconds, but unfortunately, I don't have the footage, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. So we're gonna start with the pre-final race here. That's usually how it works. You start with the pre-final and with the final. It's in the name. So for this race, I qualified in 4th out of 18 people. Pretty good. That's not too bad. Throughout the practice sessions, I actually had a decent amount of pace. You know, throughout the practice sessions, I was top 3 pace. Qualifying could have gone a little better. I thought I could have had top 3, but 4th is not too bad, especially when there's 18 people here. Now, unfortunately, for those of you new to NTK, starting on the outside is not the best place to start. It usually tends to leave you vulnerable for people on the inside washing out wide, going to the first corner, ramming you off track. And the first 2 corners are left-handed, so you do have a bit of an advantage there. So going into this race, my strategy is to try and get to the inside as fast as possible if there's a gap. If there's not a gap, I'm going to try and follow Landon in front. So we're going down the straight here, pushing Landon, waiting for the flagman to wave green. Flagman waves green, we're good to go. So like I said, we're going to follow Landon unless there's a gap on the inside. You see just how good of a start the people on the inside get. Coming out of turn 1, I get pushed a little wide. Not too happy about that, but not too bad. No damage. Going into turn 3, I'm going to go slightly defensive. Don't want anyone sending it up the inside. That does ruin my momentum coming out of 3, and so we've got someone sending it through the chicane, and so we lose a position there. Coming out of the chicane, since I got past, I've got very bad momentum, and so going into turn 7 here, we're going to get freight train, and we're going to go down into 8th place. So on this first lap, not the best start in the world. We see Kurt in front of us, taps his helmet. He wants to work together, so he already wants to settle down in this race. I'm not opposed to that. Everyone in this race today was pretty similar in lap times. Like, the gap between lap times was less than a tenth, so everyone was pretty quick today. I will say that there is someone else behind me. His name's Cohen. He will play later on in this race. I don't have a backwards camera, so you're just going to have to trust me. But yeah, everyone's pretty similar in pace today, so it's going to be hard to catch people. Another thing to note is that it's very warm today. So I went quite low on my tire pressures because I knew the tires would heat up very quickly. So you're going to see people kind of pulling away from me at the start here, but towards halfway through the race and near the end of the race is where I'm going to start really catching up and putting down the faster lap times. So you can see coming out of turns 8 and 9 here, Kurt taps his helmet, not quite close enough to really push him. You see they're kind of pulling away from me. I'm not too upset about that. Like I said, I had good pace today, and you know, I just gotta let my tires warm up. Going through turn 2 here, Kurt goes pretty wide of the apex, and so that allows me to really catch up to him, and you can see I'm right back in this race. So like I said, I'm not too worried about them pulling away from me. And actually right now my tires are pretty much warmed up, so I can start looking for moves. Going down into turn 7 wasn't quite close enough. I still have Cohen behind me for comfort. He's actually decided to work together with me, so I really don't have to worry about him. I know he's going to push me through any move I make. So going down the straight here, you see Kurt taps his helmet. He says follow him through turn 1. And so he looks for the move through turn 1, tries to follow Austin in front of him. Doesn't quite get the job done, gets pinched narrow on the apex through turn 1. And so I send it up through turn 2. Cohen from behind actually pushed me through that corner, so Cohen followed me. Cohen's now in 8th place. We move up in 7th place, and now we can focus on the 2 in front. So the next kart in front, Trevor, number 74, is a fair bit ahead of me, but like I said earlier, I wasn't too worried about pace today. I felt like I had pretty good pace, especially since Cohen from behind is working together with me. So I think I should be able to catch up to them within a couple laps. Through turns 8 and 9 here, you can see I do gain on them a little bit, so that is going to help. So in a couple laps, I think I should catch up to them. You might notice I'm being a little hesitant through some of the corners, and throughout this race I might be a little hesitant through some of the moves I make. That's because my kart had a crack on the seat post. I noticed it about 5 minutes before this race started, so I didn't really have time to fix it. So throughout this race, I have a crack in my chassis that I'm aware of, but I just didn't want to make it worse. So I was kind of babying it throughout this race. Huge shout out to Mario Ramirez for fixing this crack after this race. He did a really good job, fixed it up real quick. Really nice guy. Highly recommend if you ever have a broken chassis, or not broken chassis, just a cracked chassis. Pretty good welder. And shout out to Shelby Ramirez. She's a Junior 2 driver. She's pretty quick, so if you're in the Junior 2 class, watch out for her. So getting back into this race, the two in front, Trevor and Austin, still have a decent gap in front. It's not too big. Again, you can see I can kind of close it. Where I noticed that they would pull away from me the most was turns 8 and 9. I think I was just going in too hot through those corners, kind of just overdriving it a little, and so they would just pull away from me on the exit. Another thing to note is that Trevor is drafting off of Austin in front of him. So if I want to try and pass Trevor, it's going to be a little hard because once you get out of that slipstream to pass Trevor, he's still going to have the slipstream of Austin in front of him. And so it's going to make things a little more difficult. But we're on lap 7 here. We only have 2 more laps to go. This is where people start to look for moves here. So if Trevor goes for a move, I might try and follow him through. But I also have to worry about Cohen from behind trying to go for a move. Going through turn 3 here, we get nice and close to Trevor. We took it pretty well. But going down the straight here, you can see just the slipstream effect. You know, he has a slipstream, so he's going to be able to pull away from me a little bit. So we're not quite close enough to go for a move through turn 7 here. So we still have Cohen from behind to worry about. And so coming out of turns 8 and 9 here, I don't really take the best of exits. So that's going to bring Cohen a little closer. He really wasn't that close to me going into turn 1. I did look behind me, so I wasn't too worried about it. Didn't go defensive, didn't really have to. You can see the two in front are quite a bit ahead of me now, so at this point my focus is kind of shifted to Cohen from behind, just making sure I don't lose any positions here, because 7th is a nice place to start in the final. So coming out of the chicane here, Cohen's right on my bumper, and so I'm going to have to go defensive going into turn 7 here. He holds me really narrow. He makes sure I take the most narrow line going through turn 7 here. I go in deep, so I have the inside for the next couple of corners up ahead. He's going to try and hold it around the outside through turns 8 and 9 here. That's going to give him really bad momentum coming out of the corner, and so I'm going to get in that slipstream, try and drag race him to the end here. And unfortunately, the straight wasn't quite long enough, and he took the position. We finished this race in 8th place. It's not the best race in the world. We started in 4th, finished this race in 8th. Definitely could have done better than that. But it was a pretty fun race, especially at the end, battling with Cohen there. But this video is not over yet. Don't click away just yet. I'm going to add the final to this race, and you'll see why in just a second. So we move on to the final race. For those of you who don't know, wherever you finish in the pre-final, that's where you start in the final. So we finished the pre-final in 8th place, and so we start the final in 8th place. Pretty simple. Now, for those of you die-hard Karting with Chris fans, you might have noticed I have not been able to finish a final race at NTK without someone ramming me off track. It all started with the Fall 3 race where someone spun in front of me. Then the Fall 6 race where I was pushed wide of turn 8. After that was the Winter 1 race where a backmarker totaled my kart. And then most recently was the Spring 1 race where I was pushed wide through turn 3. So my goal for this race is obviously to finish within the top 3. I think that's everyone's goal. But to also just keep it clean, keep my nose clean, just go an entire race without someone ramming me off track. It shouldn't be a tall order. You know, I shouldn't have to wish for something like this, but we're on a bit of a streak here, and I want it to end. So going into this race, we're starting on the outside. Not the best place to start, especially if you want to have a clean race, but, you know, one can hope. But going down the straight here, you're going to see Trevor raise his hand. Someone from behind is really pushing us really hard. I'm actually in 8th place, and I'm having to put on the brakes. I shouldn't have to put on the brakes in 8th place. But the flagman waves green. We're good to go. And the outside gets a pretty good start, but going to turn 1, whoever was pushing us from behind just would not let off the throttle, pushed us off track, and now we've moved down into 13th. So obviously I'm quite frustrated at this point. This has happened 5 times in a row now. Can't even get through the first corner without someone ramming me off track. Obviously in a race like this, you just gotta brush those things off, put your head down, and try and catch up to the next carts in front. You know, it is racing, things like this do happen. They shouldn't happen, but they do. But a lot of people after this race were asking me what happened. So I'm going to show you the replay and kind of show you what happened from my perspective. So like I said, at the start of this race, Trevor was putting up his hand telling people to slow down. You can't see it because I don't have a backwards camera, but I was also doing the same thing, trying to tell the person behind to slow down. So initially at the start, the outside gets a pretty good run. We actually moved up into 7th place at the start, so we got a pretty good run. But going into turn 1 here, you can see I get pushed off track. I actually had the steering wheel on full lock to the left, and I just had so much understeer because the guy behind me kept pushing me. And you see Trevor in front gets T-boned by the Tony Kart. Fortunately, I'm able to go around them and I don't get caught up into that incident. I was able to get it back out on track, but this incident was all caused by someone from behind not braking for the first corner and just keeping their foot planted going into turn 1. So at this point in the race, I know I'm in last place. There's actually no one behind me now. Everyone else from 14th on back has been basically taken out of this race. Their carts are off to the side here. You can see some people standing over there trying to move their carts about. So I was quite fortunate that I was able to get it back out on track, but still, we're down to 13th. I was frantically looking at the corner workers trying to see if they would red flag this. There was about 6 people who went off track there, and so I was thinking maybe they would restart it, or maybe someone got injured, maybe they'd move the carts over, but nope, there were no red flags. They decided to continue racing. So the next kart in front is Austin. He was in the pre-final with us. He was the one who finished the pre-final in 5th place. I know he's quick. I know he's got a lot of pace, but I also know I have a lot of pace. Like I said earlier in this video, I qualified pretty high. In the practice sessions, I was within the top 3, so I know I've got decent pace, and so I was just constantly reminding myself that this race isn't over yet. There could still be some people up ahead fighting. I know I've got the pace, so at this point in the race, my end goal is to catch up to Austin in front. That was my end goal. But you got to set yourself mini goals as well. So I set myself lap times that I try and beat every lap. I've got a micron so I can see what kind of lap times I'm doing. And so that's what I was doing throughout this race. So Austin in front is a very quick driver, and it is going to take a long time to catch up to him. I think it's about a 2 or 3 second gap right now, so it's going to take a while. So I'm going to show you a brief montage of me trying to catch up to him. I was about a 1/10 of a lap faster than him per lap. Some laps we were actually the same lap time. I looked at the lap comparison after this race, so you can see kind of catching up to him, but not quite catching up to him. But on lap 14 here, start of lap 14, you can see we've caught up to this big group in front. And so that's not only going to slow Austin down, but that's going to slow everyone down. And so this means that we do have a chance at least trying to make up some positions. I don't think I'm going to do it on this lap, but at the end of lap 14, I should be able to get close enough as Austin in front goes a little wide of the chicane. Can't really go for the move through turn 7 here. It would be one hell of a dive bomb. Another thing to note is Austin never really looked behind him throughout this race, so I don't think he knows I'm behind him. So I could probably use the element of surprise here, but we're rounding out lap 14, start of lap 15 now. This is where people really start to battle a lot, so I'm going to try and take full advantage of this. I'm going to try and be aggressive on these last 2 laps, try and gain as many positions as possible, try and just claw my way back up to where I started. Going into turn 3, though, someone has spun off track, so we gain a position for free. We're up in the 12th now. Going through the chicane, Austin's going to get a poor exit. You see him shaking his head here. And so I'm going to pull along beside him going into turn 7. He doesn't defend it, so like I said, I don't think he knew I was behind him. And then coming out of turn 7, Hunter gets pushed off wide by the Tony Kart in front. Austin actually held it around the outside of turn 7, so he had the inside through turns 8 and 9. Coming out of turns 8 and 9 here, I'm right behind him. And I'm not going to actually go for the move going into turn 1. I know I said I was going to be aggressive, but Austin's pretty quick, so I'm just going to follow him through whatever move he does. You can see the 2 in front are being quite aggressive, so Austin's pretty quick. He should be able to work his way around these people. And exit of turn 3, the Tony Kart gets a poor exit. I'm going to push Austin through, follow him through the chicane. Don't really get a good exit through the chicane because I was going side by side with the Tony Kart. And so going to turn 7 here, I'm not going to be close enough to Austin in front, which is a little unfortunate because you can see he kind of messed up turn 7, so maybe we could have had the position there. But going through turns 8 and 9 here, there's no one behind me anymore. The Tony Kart, I think, went off track. And so we're going to finish this race in 10th place. So I'm not going to lie, this race was quite frustrating. We started this day at the front of the grid. We had decent pace, but then, in the pre-final started 4th, dropped down to 8th, and then in the final started 8th, dropped down to 13th. We did make our way up back to 10th, but still not happy with this race. The streak still continues. That's 5 times we've been rammed off track, so not too happy with that. But that's all I'm going to have for today. Unfortunately, not the best race in the world. As you can see me checking my GoPro, make sure it was recording. It was recording, Chris, don't worry. But like I said, that's all I have for today. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, please do comment below. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.